Welcome, welcome. And here's Chaney. Oops. Hey, Chaney.
Hey,
How are you?
I am good. I have not been on IG Live in over a year. I think.
Well, I'm so glad that you're on here with us today.
Yeah, yeah.
We broke
How
your we broke your IG life fast.
right? Hella glad to be here though.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. So let me introduce Chaney. Chaney Turner is the chair of the Oakland Cannabis Commission, as well as the founder of Townbiz, and received a Oakland Progressive Party award for the work that she had done through Townbiz a couple years ago, right? And then also the founder of Beyond Equity. And before we get into all of the stuff about the topic today, which is town cannabis, is we always ask two questions of everybody who comes on board. So the first one is, this is called Monday Meals, and this started because, I used to run like a side hustle where I would um, make meals and sell it, and I would have to when I drop it off or someone would come pick it up for me, then I get to check in with them. And it became sort
Yeah.
of this place where I got to give nourishment for the body, but then also check in with people. So nourishing our hearts and our minds. And so I wanted to hear one, what are you having for lunch?
Um, well, I have not ate lunch yet. I'm not gonna even lie. I haven't ate lunch yet, but I am gonna eat lunch um after this is over.
Okay. What are you gonna have? Because I feel like that's one of the things. I always want to know that I want to make sure that our people are fed. So I want to make
I
sure that you're
know.
eating well.
And I see some of my folks in the audience, Jay and Mary, who probably were like, "How you gonna be on the Monday meals and you ain't got no food?" So I already know I'm being judged, but most likely I'm craving some Ethiopian food, so I will probably
Mm,
hopefully I don't know hopefully Insaro is open and I can stop
yummy.
by and grab some food from there. Uh, if not, I'll just have to go with a secondary option.
That sounds good. That sounds good. I'm having pasta, so after we finish with this, I don't want to be all slurping on the camera, but
Right?
I'm definitely gonna have some pasta after this. But you know what I've been thinking about is actually, did you see Sweet Fingers is opening up off a seminary?
Yes, and I
And
am patiently waiting for Chef Clive so I can get some oxtails. I miss their food so much. Um, you and I we're in the same neighborhood, so
yeah,
Sweet Fingers was like always close by.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to it too. I can't wait. I saw the signage and I was like, yes.
right?
And then the second question that we ask then is that everybody answers is, so then what are the ways that you're nourishing yourself? So either your body, your heart, your mind, your spirit, what are the ways that you nourish yourself on a day-to-day basis or that you're
Well,
doing now lately?
one of the things is staying hydrated.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I drink a lot of water throughout the day, staying hydrated. Um, this morning, I had a really great walk with my mom, who lives in the neighborhood also. So we took my dog out in this cold weather, and um, and surrounding myself with good people. Um, I am very fortunate to have real people in my life who, we support each other. We check in with each other. We make sure that we're drinking water and eating and things like that.
I
So
love that.
I think I think definitely having, like a good support system, of friends and loved
Mhm.
ones, is extremely important, especially during these times.
That's right. That's right. I really love that. I love that because I think oftentimes when people talk about quote unquote self-care, they're always just talking about themselves. Like, how do I take care of myself? How do I like go take a bath or how do I go take care of and go somewhere alone?
Right.
And I feel like oftentimes we do. We need to be surrounded by people that love us and care for us too.
Right. And self-care doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend money, like a
Hmm.
spa day. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that, or anything. But I think we need to talk about different ways of self-care that isn't um, that is accessible for everybody.
That's right. That's right. So I
Yeah.
love that you took that walk with your mom and have been doing that. And then for other people like that, I see Jay Louise wrote in there. They love the second question. What are you doing to take care of yourself? And what are the ways that you're nourishing yourself? Someone put in the chat, Bimby put, neighborhood needs to be nurturing. That's right. And I think,
Exactly. That is real important, especially where we live.
right.
Um, it's not that nourishing, but you find ways to like we see each other in passing, just walking in the neighborhood a lot.
That's right.
So just yeah, it should reflect that too.
Ooh, they took, Jay Louise put, called off work 2 days to tend to myself and cry. Yeah, there's sometimes where you just need to cry, right? I feel that. I feel
Absolutely.
that. I'm glad that you did that for yourself because that also is nourishing. I think like a lot of
Hmm.
people tend to think that it's about like that kind of release is not, but when we like hold those tears in, we hold in our grief, we hold in our pain too long, it cracks our like I like to look at it like we're a teacup, right?
Hmm.
And then we're overflowing, right? Because we're just pouring and pouring and pouring,
Hmm.
and that release of like pouring out the teacup actually is so good for our bodies
Hmm.
and for ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's catch up. Like, what's going on with all of this stuff around the cannabis and the robberies and stuff? And it's been a minute that where I started to really think about how the impacts that we've seen in Oakland of the because the cannabis industry used to be illegal, right? And there was an entire market that really sustained our communities
Hmm.
in certain ways because people were marginalized and boxed out of the regular economy. And our communities are usually disinvested from and are disenfranchised. And so, people making money. And then now it became legal, quote unquote. And like, what does that mean? Then the impact of that on, some of the folks that um, going legal probably have really negative impacts. And I started to think about like, whoo, there's gonna be some kind of backlash that happens as a result of this.
Hmm.
While when we see the economy crashing, and we saw the economy start to go down before the pandemic, but the
Right.
pandemic has really like tanked it. So, like, what has that been like for folks in the cannabis industry?
Um, wow. You know, the cannabis industry is still, it's still new, you
Yeah.
know. It's a new market, and you there's still a lot of uncertainty around
Mhm.
it, right? And so to answer your first question, about the robberies, in summer of 2020, during the uprisings that was happening
Mhm.
across the country,
Right.
um, uh, there were businesses in general that were targeted, right? Large corporate businesses and and also some of our small businesses. And along with that was cannabis operations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and unfortunately, the robberies have not stopped since then.
Ah,
Um, Last year, you had multiple cannabis operations throughout the supply chain. And when I say supply chain, it just wasn't dispensaries,
right.
delivery spots, cultivation spots, um, uh, warehouses, the whole nine
Wow.
was impacted. Um, and the thing is that Oakland is pretty much kind of the epicenter of cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're the first city to introduce cannabis equity, and along with that, a lot of other cities and states have kind of followed that model.
Mm.
What was disheartening is that unlike other businesses, right? If my clothing store is targeted, or Apple store is targeted, insurance will pay for
That's right.
all of the electronics that is stolen. You can get certain protections from maybe getting some loans from the bank to recover and different
Mm.
things. And unfortunately, cannabis does not have those protections. And so I think it's important for people to know
Right.
that cannabis operations, if you are working directly with the plant, so
Mm.
any THC products, um, you can't put your money in a bank. So I can't go like my regular business and put it's a cash business.
It's
Um,
wild to me.
well, because cannabis is still illegal.
Right.
So that's what people, it's still federally
Federally.
illegal.
Right.
And so banks are federally, regulated. So they can't take your
Drug
drug
money.
money, quote unquote. And
Right.
so there have been advocates for years. I suggest that people look up safe the Safe Act, Safe Banking Act,
Mm.
and it's really up, to Cory Booker and the rest of our senators to really get behind that. And what happened, last year, and especially this weekend, really sent a signal to Senate, because eyes are on Oakland. You had
Mm.
it was estimated that people lost, in general, close to $5 million in products and cash and different things.
Wow.
I have friends who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars that was stolen.
Oh my God.
Um, and if there was safe banking available, right, they
Right.
could have had those protections.
Right.
Um, Also, there is very little, you know, it's really hard to recover from an insurance standpoint, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's still some people from last year who are still trying to recover with their insurance claims, from last year. Again, being that this is still federally illegal,
Right.
the protections aren't there. And
Right.
so when it comes to certain cannabis operations that are small, um, some of these people they might have to go out of business. Some people might have to sell their
Ooh.
business. But if they don't get relief, um, quickly, it's going to be pretty devastating for these operations, and also for the city of Oakland. And hopefully, we can come to some solutions to help these operators. Because if we don't, they'll leave the city of Oakland. There's surrounding cities that have lower tax rates,
Right.
um, that makes it more easier for people to operate out of.
Right. Wow. I mean, I knew the thing about the banking, but just like, if I think about when you're saying like hundreds of thousands of dollars lost, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are just sort of moving in terms of cash, like what does that mean for people, and how unsafe in some ways that could be for a lot of folks.
Right. I mean, that's the issue that, people have been talking about for years. This is a safety issue. You're literally putting people at risk, and the state of California has some responsibility as well. The state, you could go on to, the state website, and pretty much they have all cannabis operations throughout the state public information. And so you're literally putting these people's
Lives at
addresses
risk.
and lives at risk.
You're like,
Why?
here's your hit list, basically.
Right. Like, you're basically saying this is where you can go find where people are storing their drugs, right? Or, different things. You also have to understand that a lot of these operations, are in certain green zones, right? Like where we live, District 7, there's a lot of green zones that,
Say what that
were hit.
is.
And
Tell
so
us what a green zone is.
a green zone means it's a zone that is authorized to have cannabis operations.
Got
And
it.
so in certain areas in District 7 and 6, you have cannabis operations in like Sobrani Park.
Right.
You literally have them over, off of Eads and certain areas that are deemed unsafe, right? And so that is another issue.
Right.
I feel that we need to expand so that people can have, more options, and also not having these, putting these people, literally having them vulnerable by having their information public. And I saw somebody, say that their operation was hit 5 times,
Yeah.
and their boss told them to come strapped. Well, Oakland police is literally telling operators that they need to hire armed security to shoot people. That's not what we want. That's not what people got into this industry for.
Right.
We literally would prefer for them to do their jobs and prioritizing all public safety. But, when it comes to small businesses, and not just cannabis businesses, we had retail stores. Prime was hit last year. Taylor J was hit. These are small local POC owned businesses.
That's
right. And it's the same with some of these cannabis operations. Not all operations here are large conglomerate. We have a large amount that are small and equity owned. Some of them don't even, gross enough to where they can have 24-hour armed security.
Right.
And so I think that when we're talking about public safety, we need to prioritize the safety of people, walking down the street, and also prioritizing the safety of our small local businesses.
That's right. That's right. And it's like the solution it sounds like from OPD is just to cause more chaos and more pain, instead of actually, as a city, really needing to look at what are the ways that we're protecting people and creating environments that are safe for people. And I know that you're really working on that, right? And working on like what are the demands on the city that we need to be making in order to bring this issue to light more, and then bring some relief to these businesses.
Well, one of the things that we need immediately is, last Monday, Amber Center and Supernova Women hosted a press conference.
That's
and
right.
Operators and advocates, we all got together. And one of the things that we're demanding is, tax amnesty, that, for 2 years at least, for people, to recover. One of the biggest barriers and issues in cannabis is taxes. It's overly taxed. It's
Right.
ridiculous. And it's not only does that hurt the small businesses, but it's also a health equity issue when you think about it, because Prop 215, the whole point of compassionate care was to have accessible medicine for people who were in need. Right. And it can't be accessible if it's overly taxed. Right. And so it's no one is winning on that end. And again, we are in danger of losing businesses if we don't get the tax rate, right, on a local and a state level. It's ridiculous, the amount of taxes. In 2019, we advocated to lower, the recreational business tax. And so businesses that made, less than 500,000 in gross receipts, I think had like a 6.5 tax, and businesses that grossed over 5 million were at the 9.5. Well, that is still extremely high, and it's still not allowing businesses to grow. And with everything that I just said, with the taxes, some of these predatory loans that the city offered to people, how can people actually grow their business, right? And have a successful business, but also for people, low income people, and people of color who rely on cannabis. I don't care if they're, if you're using it recreationally, you're still consuming medicine, right? And it's helping you in some way. And so we also need to advocate so that people can buy it at an affordable rate, because if not, people, the unlicensed market and quote unquote black market will just continue to thrive, and I don't blame anyone who continues purchasing, or on the black market if they need affordable medicine. We need to get these policies passed, and so that folks can have the option to go and buy cannabis at an affordable rate.
Because it sounds like that tax rate structure really only benefits large corporations, and it doesn't really help. It seems like it doesn't help the small businesses at all. Like it feels like it's meant to do that, right? It's meant to like leave out small businesses and individuals, but like to just help big corporate folks get more money.
Right. And when 64 was passed, people didn't pass policies in mind with, health equity in mind. It was just taxes. It's just thinking, how much money can we get by overly taxing cannabis, right? And the state projected that it would get, and don't get it twisted, the state of California is still getting millions of dollars off of cannabis, but if it was not overly taxed, the state would get even more, instead of prioritizing or focusing on lowering taxes, the state is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on enforcement, which makes no sense. And so they're overly enforcing, throughout the state, these grows, some of these legacy grows that people have been doing for decades, right? And trying to get them out of business because that's the competition. Well, if you want to get rid of your competition, lower the taxes. As simple as that. As simple as that. We don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on enforcing, grows up north and throughout the South. And also, some of these unlicensed dispensaries, which they'll spend, and literally all they do is go and take the weed and money, and people will probably open up the next day. So what is the benefit of that? We should have, the focus should be on making the market more appealing for people to transition and come over. As of now, why would anybody want to transition from the legacy market where you have to deal with being robbed, taxes, and loans and being broke, and to your point, yes, that does open the door for the conglomerates, because if these small and equity operators can't get the relief that they need, they'll move or go out of business, and that'll just open the door for multi-state operators to come in and buy up all of the licenses, right? And that's what we don't want.
Right. Yeah, because so I was noticing that someone in the chat was saying like that rate, the tax rate, was higher than alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah, it's cannabis businesses that pay some of the highest taxes.
I'm just like, I'm still blown away by it because it feels like though the, yeah, I understand like we're at the beginning sort of part in terms of a timeline of cannabis becoming legal, but I feel like I'm sure that folks talked about this before it became legal. But I wonder what are the ways, I guess I'm trying to get to a place where what are the solutions? Like, what are the ways in which that we can folks support the cannabis industry to make it more equitable? Like, what is the work that you're doing through Beyond Equity, and advocating for that? Like, what are the ways?
Yeah, and so aside from the work that I do on the commissions,
Right.
I have Beyond Equity, and um, myself and other advocates, we work locally and statewide, and so we're trying to work on initiatives statewide to for fee waivers for
Mm-hmm.
small and equity applicants, more access to licenses, and also lowering the tax rate. What
Mm-hmm.
people can do, you don't have to be in the industry, to advocate for cannabis. I think that we need more allies, definitely, and education is a big part of that. And so some of the programming for 2022 is doing more just educational
Yeah.
events, and so
Yeah.
that people can know um, about how they can get involved. Not just to advocate, for lower taxes, but for equity in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when people vote for cannabis legalization, they're just voting for legalization, and they're not looking at the fine print,
That's
right?
right.
And along with 64, along with legalization, all of this stuff people voted for. So it's um,
Mm.
it's really educating people. So when they go to the polls, it's like, well, or they can decide on how they want to vote, or holding their elected officials accountable. If we had more allies, we could have maybe advocated for lower taxes. Also, some of the legislation in 64, there's still a lot of enforcement, that we voted for. So educating ourselves, following people who are doing the work. Definitely follow Beyond Equity. Follow Supernova Women, the work that they're doing. The
Mm.
Hood Incubator is
Mm.
doing, some really great work. Also attend our meetings. There is actually an important meeting tomorrow, um, uh, that's going to our city council around cultivation taxes, and just want to shout out council uh, Vice Mayor Rebecca Kaplan, who actually is an ally
Mm.
of the industry. But the state is trying to increase more taxes on cultivation, which is ridiculous, on dry flower and all kinds of things, and that only hurts, of course, the smaller businesses. So tomorrow there is a special city council meeting where they will be talking about it's the California Cannabis Growers Tax Reform. And
Okay.
so definitely attend,
Mm.
listen, give comment. If you are in support of it, we all should be in support of not having additional taxes. Also, our commission meetings are every first Thursday of the month. And we had a really great turnout this past Thursday. Uh, uh, Police Chief Armstrong was there,
Mhm.
as well as another officer, and we were able to ask some questions around you know especially this response time of OPD.
Mhm.
Um, oh, Miss Ann, tomorrow's meeting I believe is at 10:30 a.m. But I can hit you offline about that as well. And so those are just a few ways that people can get involved, support organizations and people that's, doing the work. Also follow the different, meetings that we have, because this just doesn't affect cannabis businesses. This affects the whole city. But most importantly, it affects people who need access to this medicine from a health standpoint, especially marginalized communities. And so I always say, if you consume cannabis, if you have a loved one that, has been healed, by cannabis, if you want to see cannabis tax dollars reinvested into your community, this is something that we all have to advocate for.
And so I just wanted to confirm, I just looked it up. Tomorrow's meeting is at 10:30. If you go to, if you just type in City of Oakland City Council meetings, it'll take you to the calendar, and you just look for December 7th. And if you go to the agenda and you click on the agenda, there will be a Zoom link. It also gives you options to give an e-comment if you can't make the public comment. Usually public comment is only 2 minutes. So it's like, unless you're like really, getting on public comment often and know how to like stay within the 2 minutes, I suggest you write down your comments so that you could get all the comments that you want in. Essentially, after that, you won't be able to. It's on Zoom. The meetings.
Yeah, it's on Zoom, and I actually will be creating a post about the meeting after our talk, so folks can go on the Beyond the Equity page, and the time information in the link will be there.
Awesome, and then you'll be able to like show some talking points for folks. Because when you were saying allies, I just kept thinking like, everybody who's a consumer should be an ally, like, because this would impact. Thank you. Somebody put the link in the chat. Blessed, yes, 510. Thank you for putting it there.
Thank you.
Because that, I think, I wonder what that could look like, just in terms of being able to really, like, I'm a consumer, right? Mm-hmm. I would advocate for this, not only just thinking about what equity in Oakland really looks like, but as a personal consumer, like, when I saw this, I was thinking, when I thought about what was happening last year, it was on the night of the election, right? There was an assumption that, and OPD miscalculated poorly, right? Which I think also shows that the police are really about policing. They're not about safety. And
they're not about public safety. They're not about public safety. There is no reason. I don't care if it was your business, your home or whatnot. If you have been burglarized violently at gunpoint by mobs of people, it should not take, the response time, it should not be 4 hours. I had literally, my friend's operation was robbed multiple times throughout the weekend, but also throughout the night. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that OPD said during our meeting, Chief Armstrong said, was that the resources, was scattered during those times. Well, when we started this conversation, I said cannabis operations have been targeted for over a year.
Yeah.
There hasn't been actions in between that time. November 15th, there were operations that were robbed and response time took hours. There was no, looting or riots during that time.
Right.
Also, I think it's important for people to know that it was the mayor who cut the one officer that we had that was assigned to cannabis. The mayor cut that position, and there was no communication. Right. And so
the mayor who keeps saying that, we've defunded the police, but she's the one who's actually made cuts and frozen positions and things like that.
Right, made cuts, and you would think why would you cut the one position that we had that was dedicated, for cannabis, when you know that there have been ongoing robberies, right? Also, I think it's important for people to know that there's a good amount of law enforcement that's involved in cannabis that provide, They provide private security.
That's right.
Some of them, are, co-owners of, different. And so I think it's interesting that even, yeah, they're not taking it, seriously. We don't want, if anyone who's come from the traditional market, cannabis is not a violent industry. People didn't get here to, have militarized security guards, at their spaces. Before 64 was passed, Oakland had one unsuccessful cannabis robbery, right? This was before 64. It's supposed, the whole reason is access and safety. It's less safe since 64. Take us back to the old school if that's if that's if that's the case. People are literally safer, still quote unquote trapping than they are on the legal side. Like, make it make sense. That makes absolutely no sense.
I'm blown away by that. I think that there was also just like the criminalization of people, right? It's like,
right.
But if you're saying on one side, like that actual criminal activity at the time was actually safer for the community.
Right, exactly.
So what are the ways, I think, like, then for us is like, we're in this situation now, right? There's these things that you're trying to pass at the state level. There's something that you're trying to bring in terms of tax amnesty for the businesses for the next 2 years here in Oakland.
Right. And also trying to get the city of Oakland needs to demand that. So each year, the state of California issues out state grants to municipalities to support their cannabis programs. And Oakland receives money, LA, San Francisco. I believe we are set to receive, I think, like close to $10 million. Well, in addition to that, the state also, in my opinion, the state also needs to give additional funding, emergency relief to these cannabis operators who were robbed.
Is it just happening in Oakland, or is it happening across the state?
No, it's happening throughout the state. There's throughout the state.
Wow.
I think Oakland had the most, but there's operations, and I just saw a horrible video that came out of LA of an operation that was, that was targeted. Again, it's the entire supply chain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't help but think, that folks, one of the things that people do is that they want to go to like who's doing this and why are they doing it? And,
a lot of it is organized, it's not just random people. One of the things that was frustrating about the meeting on Thursday is that Chief Armstrong kept saying, he kept trying to blame everything on sideshows. And as someone who is, an Oakland native, someone who has attended sideshows in the past, and, I know that, they're not the same as they used to be, but a lot of these people are not even from Oakland. They're coming from surrounding cities.
Right.
And I see, they're asking for more resources to combat violent sideshows. Well, that's it's a public safety issue, yes, but part of it is a traffic issue, right? So
just the logic behind it just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, I would rather there's funding going to have helicopters and multiple, police officers, at a sideshow, or what just happened this weekend where you had 14 officers respond to a deaf man having a mental crisis.
And they ransacked his
dispensaries
house.
Being robbed at gunpoint don't even get 14 cars.
No.
But you mean to tell me a houseless deaf man having a mental crisis warranted 14 police cars that did nothing but further terrorize him,
Yeah.
right? And so it's important to look at that. And I saw someone say, recall Libby. We got to stop saying recall Libby, y'all. Her term is done.
Yeah.
So we got to look at, we have to look at the people who are currently running
Yeah.
and what they support. Let's
right.
stop talking about recalling Libby. She's done.
Yeah.
We have multiple people that are running for mayor. And so we
don't
need to look at.
We don't need to waste money on a recall. Let's just
No,
wait. We got till November, and she's out because she's terming out. She's not able to run again, and we really need to. I know that it's not soon enough, and I think that it's not soon enough. It was not soon enough the day she was elected, but like I think that you know, I think that when we think about like the ways in which, so some of the things is that oftentimes when we look at elected officials as our only way for change, right? That we think, oh, if we just got rid of Libby, like that would be the solution. And yes, she is a big driver for some of the issues and problems that we have in this city, but it also is about people power, right? So what are the ways that you are going to like stay involved and get involved with Beyond Equity, get involved with Oakland Rising, get involved with the work that we're doing in the community, because that's actually going to be the biggest impact. So
absolutely,
if we have someone who gets into power like Libby, then it's like we need to be constantly on their asses, the way that Chaney was saying earlier, that you were saying, Chaney, to hold them accountable, right? And what does accountability look like? It could look like your vote changing them out of office, but it's also like coming at them constantly and talking with them, having meetings with them and letting them know, writing them constantly, sending them emails, showing up to city council, showing up to their meetings, showing up to these spaces with a lot of people in order to affect that change. And I think that it's way, just like Rosability put in there, like it's much bigger than Libby. She is a big driver for this, but it's gotta be relentless. Exactly.
And people need to know that actually Libby Schaaf is not she is not a supporter of our cannabis community.
No.
She does not support cannabis equity, and actually, you know, some business that could potentially, you know, came to Oakland didn't come because of the tax structure. She was not supportive in lowering the taxes in 2019. She actually was trying to, you know, split our city council on a decision. And so just talking about, you know, cannabis in general, it's important to look at, you know, I think it was Rosability who said we don't need another Libby clone, and we don't. So it's important, you know, make your own decisions, but look at the people that she props up, right? And that continue to support everything that she's about. Right. And so let's not focus on, you know, recalling somebody that's termed out, but let's focus on supporting the ones that support us, the ones that support, you know, the affordable housing, keeping our small businesses in Oakland, you know, making sure that our whole infrastructure, you know, is healthy, you know, and supported. Because whatever happens with, you know, cannabis businesses can be used as a blueprint for small business in Oakland in general. The city of Oakland does not know how to do equity. Right. And so it's up to us to, you know, again, holding them accountable, you know, to all of that, because at the end of the day, cannabis is a social justice issue, because it intersects with everything that affects us.
That's right. And I think that people need to understand it in that way, that it is a social justice issue. Well, I just wanted, you know, we're coming close to the end of the time. This was like I'm walking away with, I feel like I just took a class. I feel like I just learned so much from you today, Chaney, and I hope everybody else who joined us did too. And give us the handles on where they could follow Beyond Equity? Is it, you're on Instagram? Are you on
Yeah.
Facebook?
Yep. Instagram, Social Life. Also, definitely follow Townbiz Oakland, and Beyond Equity. Again, some other, organizations, definitely follow if you're trying to learn more about cannabis, the Hood Incubator, Supernova Women, Cannaclusive, if you were, just wanting to know, more in general.
Yeah.
And again, our commission meetings are every first Thursday of the month. Also, we do have some vacancies on the commission. So if anyone is interested, in joining, go on the City of Oakland website. And we do have, we definitely need some people who would be interested in volunteering in this role.
And so, the one thing that I wanted to mention in relation to what you're doing and what we're talking about holding electeds accountable is that we're going through a redistricting process in Oakland, which is going to change the way in which who's voting for who on city council and the school district. And we've been holding town halls. We've been doing it for about a month now. And the Redistricting Commission, which is a public commission, that Oakland Rising was a part of, passing a ballot measure so that it can be public, because it used to be voted on by city council. And we're about to see some major changes happen to the city council, to the districts in Oakland. And I think this is going to be a very equitable process if we are able to really get some of those hills folks out of the flatlands. And get them out of the districts, the majority of the districts, because they're essentially making a lot of choices that are not about taking care of the folks who are most marginalized in this community. And that if we're setting this up where everybody's looking to the hills and centering the hills in candidacy and in electoral process, and while they're elected, and they're always catering to the Hills voice, we need
Exactly.
to be catering to the marginalized folks in our community,
Absolutely.
the folks in the flatlands. And so there's a couple things that we're doing. There's a redistricting commission meeting happening this Wednesday. Follow Oakland Rising, because we're putting out an e-blast tomorrow that is going to go out and tell you what we need you to call in about and make the changes to Oakland, because we need that. We need voice in the flatlands. I know that when folks look at it and they think about like the ways in which we have the hills and we have the flatlands and we need to all be one city. I'd love that. I'd love where we lived in a world where people aren't criminalized, where people aren't disenfranchised, where people aren't homeless, where people are fed and can go to school and feel like the choices that they make keep them safe. Right, and that the city keeps them safe, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world
and
where.
I would say it's important also, to recognize that some of these council members aren't representing the lower lands, and we have some District 6 people in here, and I'm pretty sure they can fill me on that.
Yeah.
Because y'all representative lives at the highest of the hills.
Thank you.
And a lot of those decisions, I'm like, I used to live in D6 also. And I'm like, I don't think that's what people, are really wanting. So it's important to really follow the process. I was able to attend one of the meetings on Wednesday for the redistricting and really listen. And I'm really glad that, that commission is made up of, some actual community folks that is representing.
That's right.
Because this next election it's going to be very crucial to Oakland. Also for the state of California. These people want to turn our state red, and they're doing everything possible in their power, and I know that it's tiring, but we still have to support the people that's actually doing the work on our behalf, because they're trying to recall any and every progressive politician that is actually, trying to keep people housed, safe, employed, all of that.
Right. So get on, so there's a redistricting commission this Wednesday. You can go to oaklandrising.org and go to our blog. You can see and watch some of our past redistricting town halls and see all the data that we're using to come up with the lines that I think are going to really benefit folks who live in the flats of Oakland. And so I'm hoping that you'll see that, sign up for our newsletter so that you can, and follow our Oakland Rising social media so that you can see the talking points, because we really need you to come out. Because at this point, it is heavily represented by folks in the hills. And what we need is we need more folks, you know, folks from off of East 14th Street, right? That show up and really talk about the things that they need and want to see. So, you know, check us out, check out our blog, see some of those talking points, sign up for our newsletter so you can stay attuned with that. But Chaney, thank you so much. I'm serious. I have like I feel like my brain is like bigger now because I learned so much, because I had so many questions and it was just like, I don't know where do I get these answers from? And so I really super appreciate you. I appreciate, you all need to appreciate Chaney for all that she does for the city of Oakland, because like they said, you know, cannabis industry impacts us all. So we need to be, we need to stay tuned to that. And I know all you all are consumers. So, so get with it and follow Beyond Equity, you know, follow Oakland Rising, go to our website and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay attuned too. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Liz, and all that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, yes. And I love Oakland Rising, like for real. Y'all make sure y'all support this organization.
Yes, we love you.
Yes.
We love you, Chaney. We've always had
All
a
right.
deep love with you. Have a
Yes.
good day. Get that lunch.
All right. I am. All right. Peace.
Bye.